Barely 100 years ago, the mere thought of going to a hospital would strike terror into a person's heart. Hospitals were hotbeds of infection with dirty, overcrowded wards. Doctors operated in street clothes, without gloves, masks, or sterile instruments. A patient was fortunate to get out alive. We've come a long way. Today's healthcare facilities are bright and clean, with high-tech sterilizers, sophisticated infection control techniques, and an arsenal of infection-fighting drugs. The fear of acquiring an infection is a thing of the past. Or is it? In recent years, the risk of infection has increased for both patients and staff. Newly discovered and deadly viruses like HIV cause infections that defy cure. At the same time, our best antibiotics are failing in the face of new drug-resistant superbacteria. These threats have underscored a fundamental truth for all healthcare workers. No matter what you do, in any type of healthcare setting, using proper infection control practices is one of your most important job responsibilities. The trouble is, infection control practices can be so elementary that they're easy to take for granted. Consider this. Researchers at one hospital found that only 48% of staff in the intensive care units washed their hands before examining patients, even though they knew they were being watched as part of a research project. Let's face it, constant adherence to infection control procedures takes a lot of time and effort, something that is in short supply for many busy healthcare workers. Yet when applied consistently, infection control measures are one of the best ways you can protect your patients and yourself from infection. Whether you're a veteran healthcare worker or you're just starting out, it's time to take a fresh look at infection control. For infection to spread, 3 elements are required. 1, a source of infectious microorganisms. 2, a susceptible host. And 3, a means of transmission for the microorganism. Unfortunately, most healthcare facilities have plenty of sources for infectious microorganisms. One of the most common sources is people, patients, staff members, and visitors. People can harbor a variety of infectious microorganisms, such as bacteria, viruses, parasites, yeasts, and fungi. Invisible to the naked eye, they may be present in blood and other body fluids and secretions such as saliva, sputum, nasal and vaginal discharge, and wound drainage. They're also present in excrement and sometimes on the skin surface, especially the hands. A person doesn't have to look or feel sick to be a source of infection. Sometimes a patient can even infect him or herself when microorganisms within the patient's body multiply out of control. Contaminated objects can also be sources of infection. Some items and areas especially prone to contamination include floors, bedpans, trash cans, medical equipment, invasive medical devices, and dirty laundry. Everyone exposed to an infectious organism will not necessarily become a host. Some people may be immune to the infection or able to resist it. But like sources, most healthcare facilities also have plenty of potential hosts, people who are particularly susceptible to infection. In general, these include elderly patients, newborns, and patients with weak or undeveloped immune systems, as well as those with cancer, multiple health problems, and chronic diseases that require steroid therapy. Also at high risk are patients with surgical incisions, catheters, breathing tubes, and other medically induced pathways into the body that allow infections to enter. The longer a patient is confined to a healthcare facility, the greater his or her chance of acquiring an infection. To be transmitted, infection must enter the host's body. Infectious material can be inhaled, or it can enter through the mouth, eyes, nose, or other openings into the body. It can also enter through a break in the host's skin, caused by cuts, nicks, skin abrasions, dermatitis, or by a contaminated needle or other sharp object. There are 5 main routes of transmission: contact, droplet, airborne, common vehicle, and vector-borne. The most common route, contact transmission, can be either direct or indirect. In direct contact transmission, microorganisms are physically transferred from the source person's body surface to the host's body surface. This can happen when a healthcare worker turns or bathes a patient, or performs other patient care activities that require direct personal contact. It can also occur between two patients. Indirect contact transmission occurs when the source of infection contaminates an intermediate object, which then contacts a susceptible host. This can happen when contaminated gloves are not changed between patients, or when a healthcare worker is stuck with a contaminated needle. Droplet transmission occurs when a source person generates tiny droplets containing infectious microorganisms. The droplets may be generated when the source person coughs, sneezes, or talks, and during the performance of certain procedures, such as bronchoscopy. The infectious droplets are propelled a short distance through the air and land in the host's eyes, nose, or mouth. Droplets do not remain suspended in the air. Unlike droplet transmission, airborne transmission can occur over greater distances. The infectious microorganism is carried by microscopic droplet nuclei, or even dust particles that remain suspended in the air for long periods of time. The microorganisms can be inhaled by a susceptible host in the same room, or they may be carried by air currents to infect people at a longer distance. Despite its name, common vehicle transmission is uncommon. It occurs when microorganisms are transmitted by contaminated items such as food, water, medications, and equipment. Also rare in U.S. healthcare facilities, vector-borne transmission occurs when mosquitoes, flies, rats, and other vermin transmit microorganisms. According to the Centers for Disease Control, effective infection control programs have two levels: standard precautions and transmission-based precautions. First, let's take a look at standard precautions. Standard precautions combine the major features of universal precautions, which reduce the risk of transmitting bloodborne pathogens, with standards for body substance isolation, which reduces the risk of transmitting pathogens from moist body substances. Standard precautions are based on an important premise. There is no quick, surefire method of determining which patients may be carrying an infectious disease. Standard precautions solve this problem by requiring you to treat all patients as though they may be infectious. In other words, you must use standard precautions each and every time you anticipate that you may come in contact with the following substances: blood, all body fluids, secretions, and excretions, non-intact skin, and mucous membranes. There are no exceptions to this rule. Standard precautions help you protect yourself from infections such as hepatitis B and HIV, while also protecting your patients from infectious organisms that are often transmitted from patient to patient by healthcare workers. The single most important precaution for preventing the spread of infection to yourself and others is surprisingly low-tech: hand washing. Your employer has developed specific hand washing policies appropriate for your patients and the type of care you provide. Become familiar with these policies and always follow them to the letter. In general, you should wash your hands after touching blood, all body fluids, secretions and excretions, non-intact skin, mucous membranes, and contaminated items, whether or not gloves are worn. You also should wash your hands immediately after gloves are removed and between patient contacts to avoid transferring microorganisms to other patients or environments. To protect yourself, wash your hands before eating, drinking, smoking, applying makeup, handling contact lenses, or using the restroom. To protect your patients, wash your hands after you eat, smoke, cough, sneeze, or use the toilet. When hand washing facilities are not available, your employer will provide an appropriate antiseptic cleanser or towelettes as a temporary measure only. You should still wash your hands with soap and running water as soon as possible. Using hand lotion may prevent dermatitis, but check your employer's policy first. In some situations, lotions may promote the growth of harmful microorganisms, while petroleum-based lubricants may deteriorate latex gloves and some tubings. If your employer allows hand lotion use, be sure to wash your hands thoroughly before you apply it, and never top off lotion or soap containers, as this can promote the growth of harmful bacteria. Clean containers before refilling or use disposables. In addition to hand washing, standard practices include minimizing splashing, spraying, and spattering when performing procedures involving blood or other potentially infectious materials. And you should not eat, drink, smoke, apply cosmetics or lip balms, or handle contact lenses where there is a reasonable chance you might be exposed to blood or body fluids. Nor should you keep food and drink in places where blood or other potentially infectious materials are present. Be careful to prevent injuries from needles and other sharp instruments when using them, cleaning them, or disposing of them. Never bend, recap, or break needles after use. Immediately dispose of them in appropriate puncture-resistant containers. Another essential component of standard precautions is personal protective equipment, or PPE. PPE protects you from infectious hazards and includes gloves, fluid-resistant gowns or aprons, face shields, protective eyewear and masks, resuscitation bags, or other ventilation devices. Some tasks require more PPE, some less, and some require none at all. The point is, you need to wear as much equipment as necessary to keep blood or other potentially infectious materials from getting on your clothing, skin, or mucous membranes. Gloves are the most common type of PPE, including latex gloves for medical procedures and heavy-duty utility gloves for some housekeeping activities. Before donning gloves, wash your hands thoroughly. Cover any hand cuts with bandages in case a glove leaks or tears. Use latex gloves only once on a single patient and then discard. If a glove tears, punctures, leaks, or becomes contaminated, remove it as soon as possible and discard. Never reuse. Utility gloves may be cleaned or decontaminated and reused if not damaged. If they are damaged in any way, throw them out. When removing contaminated gloves, be careful not to touch the outside. And because no gloves are 100% effective, make sure you wash your hands after removing them. If you have dermatitis that is caused or aggravated by wearing gloves, or if you're allergic to latex gloves, you should wear cotton glove liners, powderless gloves, or hypoallergenic gloves. Your employer will provide them for you. For many tasks, gloves alone are not enough. For example, you should wear a mask, eye protection, and a face shield during patient care activities that are likely to generate splashes or sprays of blood, body fluids, secretions, and excretions. Wear a clean, non-sterile gown if you need to protect your clothing or skin from exposure. Select a gown appropriate for the activity and amount of fluid likely to be encountered. When large amounts of blood may be encountered, such as during autopsies, surgery, or trauma care, wear a surgical cap or hood and shoe covers or boots. Be sure to wear PPE when resuscitating a patient. Mechanical emergency respiratory devices and pocket masks are designed to isolate you from contact with a patient's saliva and body fluids, which could contain infectious materials. Always inspect your protective equipment before, during, and after use. Clean and maintain PPE properly, and repair or discard any equipment that is flawed or damaged. Remove PPE as soon as possible if it becomes penetrated by blood or other potentially infectious materials. And don't take a microorganism to lunch. Always remove PPE before leaving the work area. Immediately dispose of it as infectious waste or have it laundered or decontaminated according to your employer's policy. Standard precautions aren't just for those who give direct patient care. If you work in support areas like maintenance or housekeeping, you are just as essential to the success of your infection control program. Be aware that you can unknowingly spread infections to others and to yourself. To avoid this, carefully follow your employer's policies and procedures, including those regarding needle safety, handling soiled linens, infectious waste management, use of PPE, cleaning and decontaminating equipment and environmental surfaces. Here are some specific guidelines. When handling used patient care equipment that is soiled with blood or other potentially infectious materials, don't let it touch your skin, mucous membranes, your clothing, other patients, or items in the environment. Make sure reusable equipment is not used for the care of another patient until it has been appropriately cleaned. Single-use items should be discarded. Do not let sharps containers overfill. Soiled linen should be handled as little as possible and with minimum agitation to prevent contamination, placed in leak-resistant bags in the area where used. Transport specimens in closed containers. Wear gloves and handle carefully. Shake down waste containers and carry waste bags by the top away from your body. Clean all blood and body fluid spills promptly, according to your employer's policy. All healthcare workers should know what to do if an accidental exposure to blood or body fluids occurs, such as a needle stick injury or a splash into the eyes or mouth. Immediately wash the affected skin with soap and water, or flush affected mucous membranes with water. Then report the incident to your immediate supervisor. You should also be aware that hepatitis B vaccine is available free of charge to workers who have a potential for direct exposure to patients' blood or body fluid during the course of their work. Sometimes standard precautions are not enough to prevent the spread of certain highly infectious or drug-resistant organisms. When patients are known or suspected to be infected with these microorganisms, a second level of precautions must be used in addition to standard precautions: transmission-based precautions. Transmission-based precautions include airborne precautions, droplet precautions, and contact precautions. Sometimes several of these special categories are combined, or one category is individualized to meet the needs of the particular patient. Depending on the particular category, transmission-based precautions may entail some of the following special infection control measures: placing the patient in a private room, or cohorting patients by grouping those who are actively infected with the same microorganisms; keeping the patient's room door closed; wearing masks when entering the patient's room; moving the patient from the room for essential purposes only; having the patient wear a mask outside the room; wearing gloves when entering the patient's room; placing patients with infectious TB in rooms with proper ventilation, such as negative air pressure rooms, and requiring anyone entering the rooms to wear appropriate respiratory protection. Your employer has detailed policies and procedures that should be followed when transmission-based precautions are required. From new viruses to superbugs, medical experts predict that the healthcare community will continue to face new challenges in the years ahead. But we don't have to return to the dark ages of healthcare. With a renewed commitment to infection control from your colleagues and from you, we can help ensure that the future of healthcare is bright. Like many people, you may have entered the healthcare field because you want to help others. Whether you cook, clean, compute, fix things, or care for patients, you know you contribute to an overall mission of healing and caring for the sick and injured. These employees feel the same way, yet without realizing it, they are actually creating risks to property, health, and lives, all because they are using electric power carelessly. Typical work habits? Ordinary procedures? Maybe so, but they can cause a number of hazards such as fire, shock, and explosion. Could one of these workers be you? Each year, healthcare workers and patients suffer pain, injuries, and death from shocks or fires caused by electricity. In fact, electrical malfunction is the second leading cause of fires in hospitals. Fortunately, electricity is also the most manageable of all energy sources. Used wisely, it is a safe and silent partner that makes your work easier and more efficient. This program will give you basic information about possible electrical hazards in your workplace. It will show you how to use safe work practices to protect yourself, your coworkers, patients, and visitors. Let's start by taking a look at electricity and how it affects you. Electric current can only flow through materials called conductors. Good conductors include copper, aluminum, other metals, water, and, under the right circumstances, your body. When electric current flows through your body from an outside source, you receive an electric shock. The effects of the shock depend on several factors, including the amount of voltage and current involved, your body's resistance, the path of the current, and how long the shock lasts. Not surprisingly, the more electric current you absorb, the greater your risk of serious injury and death. Of course, the amount of voltage is important, but so are other conditions, such as resistance. Take, for instance, a standard 120-volt circuit. Jane accidentally sticks a screwdriver in it and gets a slight tingle. Joe does the same thing, but gets a life-threatening jolt. What made the difference? Joe's sweaty palms. His sweat, like water, conducted electricity readily, while Jane's dry hands helped her resist the electrical current. You too are more apt to conduct electricity if you are wet or standing on a wet floor. If the electrical devices you're using are equipped with 3-prong plugs, standing on dry ground can lower your resistance to electrical current in some situations. In most electrical systems, any current that leaks out of the system due to faulty wiring or some other defect is sent into the earth to be harmlessly discharged, what is called grounding. Great idea, except for one problem. In such a system, if you touch a live wire or any other electrified ungrounded conductor while you are also in contact with the ground, the current will flow from the conductor through you to the ground. You become part of the electrical circuit, a deadly situation indeed. Of course, grounding is a potential hazard anytime you are working with electrical equipment outdoors or on the ground floor of a building. But you can also be grounded many floors up if you touch metal plumbing pipes or any other conductors that are connected to the ground below. Another way to increase your body's resistance to shock is with insulation. Unlike conductors, insulators are materials that have an extremely high resistance to the flow of electricity. Good insulators include rubber, plastic, enamel, glass, and dry wood. That's why standing on a wood plank or rubber mat or wearing rubber-soled shoes and heavy rubber gloves can help protect you from electric shock in hazardous situations. But remember, just as there is no perfect conductor, neither is there any perfect insulator. Wearing rubber gloves or rubber-soled shoes does not make you shock-proof. If, despite body resistance, you receive an electric shock, the path the current takes through your body is critical. A shock is particularly dangerous when it passes through vital organs like the heart and lungs. This can happen when current travels across the chest from one arm to the other, or even from one arm to a foot. If current bypasses vital organs, say it enters one finger and leaves by another on the same hand, it is generally less dangerous. But that doesn't mean it isn't painful. Your reaction to the shock can be almost as dangerous as the shock itself. For example, a fall from a ladder can cause serious injury. As you can see, no amount of current is too small to ignore. Another risk factor is how long the shock lasts. The longer current flows into you, the more damage it does. Most people who contact live current are thrown back from the source. Yet you may have heard of someone who could not let go of a live wire. This happens when the current causes the muscles of the hand to contract and clench the wire tightly. Even at relatively low voltage, the current could flow long enough to cause serious injury or death. As we have seen, electric shock at its mildest may produce nothing more than an unpleasant tingling sensation on your skin. At the other extreme, a shock can kill you almost instantly by paralyzing your respiratory system or causing your heart to twitch wildly or stop beating altogether. But electrical hazards are not limited to shock. Fires can result from overheating equipment or by conductors carrying too much current. A short circuit or damaged electrical cord can produce a shower of sparks called an electrical arc. High-energy arcs can cause injury or fire. But even low-energy arcs can trigger explosions in an operating room or other area that contains explosive gases. Burns from electrical accidents can be severe or even deadly. Electrical current flowing through the body generates heat that can burn tissue deep inside the body. Such burns are often slow to heal. Now that you understand the basics of electrical power and its hazards, you should inspect your workplace for potential hazards. Dealing with minor problems immediately will prevent them from becoming major emergencies. First, go on cord and plug patrol. Most cords are made of copper or aluminum wires encased in rubber or plastic insulation. This keeps the electric wire from giving you a shock or starting a fire. When the normal flow of current is obstructed by a broken wire or faulty connections, heat can build up. Fire may result. Here's how to make sure cords and plugs stay safe. Replace any cords or plugs in your work area that appear damaged or that heat up when an appliance is used. Replace any cords with insulation that is cracked, torn, or rubbed off. Keep cords away from heat and water, and do not run them under rugs or through doors, windows, or holes in walls. Do not use plugs with removable insulating discs, especially if the disc is missing and the wire ends are exposed. To remove a plug from an outlet, pull on the plug, not the cord. Never break off or bend the third prong on a grounded plug to adapt it to a 2-slot outlet. Second, give adapters and mini extension cords the heave-ho. Do not use these octopus connections that are often found in office areas and at nurses' stations. No matter how convenient, plugging too many cords into one outlet can overload the circuit. Also, if a plug is loose and its prongs become exposed, the poor connection could produce heat and sparking. Use extension cords on a temporary basis only. Extension cords are not designed to take the place of permanent wiring. Use only 3-wire extension cords of sufficient capacity to safely carry the current drawn by any device you plan to operate from it. Never attach extension cords to the floor, walls, or other objects with tacks or pins. Third, protect patients and staff. When it comes to patient care, electric-powered equipment is everywhere. From the many electromedical devices connected to a critical care patient, to the heating pad that comforts a general care patient, to the portable oxygen machine that lets a long-term care patient visit in the waiting room. Safety precautions must be just as prevalent. Here are some tips. Check soundness of heating pads, hot water bottles, and other electrical appliances before use. Keep infrared lamps and light cradles at least 18 inches from the patient's body. Use no more than a 25-watt bulb in a light cradle. If the site to be treated is near the head, protect the patient's eyes with a towel or washcloth. Make sure that a staff member attends the patient the entire time the equipment is in use. Post warnings for patients with pacemakers in areas that contain equipment such as microwave ovens that may produce electromagnetic interference. Before using convenience receptacles that come installed in some appliances and furniture, be sure they are safe for use in healthcare facilities. Use caution if your facility has older electrically operated beds that use portable control units. In case of incontinence or spills, a control unit could be hazardous, especially if it is in bed with the patient. Take proper precautions in patient care areas that may present grounding hazards, including wet areas such as hydrotherapy areas, and all metal areas such as tanks, platforms, and catwalks. A word about personal electrical appliances. Many facilities restrict their use, yet allowing patients to use their own hair dryers, electric razors, and radios may seem like a harmless way to make them feel at home. Don't be so sure. For one thing, the devices may not be grounded and may be in questionable condition. Second, patients should be considered grounded for any number of reasons, including perspiration, possible incontinence, and of course, the fact that they are in metal frame beds. Similar risks can be caused when workers bring appliances from home, such as coffee pots, fans, radios, power tools, and electric heaters. Be sure to follow your facility's policy on personal appliances to the letter. And make sure patients do too. If electrical appliances are allowed, carefully check them for worn wiring and plugs when brought in and regularly thereafter. For maximum safety, Underwriters Laboratories hospital-grade electrical devices should be used in the patient area. This equipment is specially tested for use in the healthcare environment and can be identified by its green dot. Make sure outlets in pediatric wards are tamper-proof to prevent little fingers from getting big shocks. Fourth and finally, know the hazards you face. Anywhere electrical power is used in your facility, there is a potential for electrical hazards. Kitchens, dish rooms, laundries, pharmacies, and laboratories are some areas that have high potential for electrical accidents. Be aware of the specific hazards in your work area. Here are some general guidelines. Do not work near electrical equipment or outlets when hands, counters, floors, or equipment are wet. Do not use any device that blows a fuse or trips a circuit breaker until it has been inspected and repaired if necessary. Do not use any electrical equipment, appliance, or wall receptacle that appears to be damaged or in poor repair. Report all shocks immediately. Even a small tingle may indicate serious trouble. Do not use the equipment again until it is inspected and repaired if necessary. Know how to use electrical power equipment safely before you use it, especially electrical scrub machines and other cleaning equipment that will be used with or around water. Change light bulbs carefully. Make sure the bulb is not hot and no one is below the bulb. Disconnect electrical equipment from the power source before cleaning it. Make sure all pliers, screwdrivers, and stripping tools used for electrical work have insulated handles. All electrical equipment must be properly grounded or double insulated. Never use metal ladders when working on electrical equipment or wiring or changing light bulbs. Electrical switch lockouts or tags must be used when repairs are being made on any machinery. If you use power tools, be sure to follow these tips. Inspect power tools regularly for signs of wear. Look for corroded, loose, or bent plug prongs. Examine the cord for cracked or frayed insulation. Make sure any power tool you use has either a 3-prong plug or double insulation, a plastic housing that keeps you from touching metal parts. Do not touch a faucet, water pipe, metal counter, or any grounded appliance while using a power tool. If a tool sparks, shocks, or becomes hot to the touch, it must be repaired or replaced. Never carry a power tool by its cord. When working outdoors or in damp locations, use a GFCI protected outlet. GFCI, or ground fault circuit interrupter outlets, are part of a highly sensitive system that detects shocks and hazards and instantly cuts off the flow of current before you can be seriously hurt. A portable plug-in GFCI is also available. GFCI outlets must be checked regularly. To test, push the test button. The reset button will pop out. Reactivate the GFCI by pressing the reset button. Despite all precautions, you may be faced with an electrical emergency at some time. Knowing what to do can save your life or someone else's. If a cord or piece of equipment sparks, shocks you, feels hot, or is burning, unplug it. Protect your hand with a thick, dry towel or a heavy work glove. Without touching the outlet, grasp the cord with one hand several inches from the plug and pull it out. Locate and repair the problem before using the device again. Be careful. If the floor or counter is wet or the outlet itself is sparking or burning, do not touch the cord or appliance. Instead, call for someone qualified to turn off the power to the circuit at the service panel. If the floor is wet around the service panel, Stand on a dry board or rubber mat, or wear rubber boots. Wear heavy rubber gloves or use a wooden broom handle. Work with one hand only to protect your body from becoming a path for electrical current. Keep the other hand in your pocket or behind your back. At a circuit breaker panel, flip off the main breaker. Using your knuckle will let your hand be jerked away from the panel if you are shocked. To rescue someone from a live current, do not touch the victim or the source of the shock. Disconnect the equipment by pulling the plug or turn off the wall switch. Then call a qualified person to shut off the power at the main service panel. If power cannot be cut immediately, use a wooden broom handle or chair to knock the person free. If the victim is unconscious or burned, call for help immediately. Meanwhile, check for breathing and heartbeat. If the victim is breathing and has not received back or neck injuries, place him in the recovery position. Open the victim's airway by the head tilt chin lift method. If there is no sign of breathing or heartbeat, give mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, then check the carotid pulse and begin cardiopulmonary resuscitation only if you are qualified to do so. Follow your facility's fire emergency plan. It should be an easy-to-remember formula, like RACE, R-A-C-E. R for rescue victims. A for sound the alarm. C, confine the fire. And E, extinguish or evacuate. When you discover a fire, rescuing personnel or patients in immediate life-threatening danger should always be your top priority. Sounding the alarm is also vital. Call out your facility's fire code so other staff members can sound the alarm while you are rescuing the victim. Don't yell fire, as this may alarm others and cause confusion or panic. Next, confine the fire. Close all doors and windows after rescuing personnel from the immediate area. Finally, extinguish or evacuate. If the fire is small and the proper extinguisher is nearby, you may want to begin extinguishing the fire yourself. Call the fire department as soon as possible, even if you succeed in putting out the fire yourself. If the fire department is on the scene, evacuate that area and let trained personnel handle the fire. To snuff out a small, accessible fire in an appliance outlet switch or light fixture, use a dry chemical fire extinguisher rated ABC or BC if you have been trained in using fire extinguishers. In case of a power outage or a planned electrical shutdown, make sure you know exactly what procedures to follow ahead of time. In a healthcare facility, losing electrical power is more than a nuisance. It can be a matter of life and death. Let's be honest, electrical safety takes effort, alertness, and time. And in your line of work, time can be a very precious commodity. Yet, as we have seen, electrical power can change from a helpful partner to a lethal force in a flash. One moment of carelessness, and you may pay dearly. So take the time and make the effort for electrical safety. Do it for yourself and for those you serve. You're worth it.
As a healthcare worker, you encounter potentially hazardous situations every day. According to the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, the health service industry reports more job-related injuries and illnesses than do any other hazardous industries. Healthcare workers in long-term care face the same risks as those who work in hospitals. But in long-term care facilities, the intensive personal care needed by most patients can compound the risks. Lifting, transferring, and time-consuming personal assistance can cause a hazardous haste. An instant of neglect can cost you a lot of trouble. Take the time to pay close attention to your health and safety on the job. No matter what kind of work you do, you come across unique and potentially fatal hazards every day. This program will help you to be more aware of the hazards that you may face in your daily work and to give you methods for avoiding or dealing with these hazards. Our goal is to help you be aware of protecting your own health and safety. There are many potentially dangerous situations within the healthcare field, some of which you can anticipate. You don't usually think of yourself as slipping or tripping and falling. However, the unanticipated slip could put you in the hospital. So pay attention to what you're doing at all times. By being aware of your surroundings, you can avoid slips, trips, and falls, the cause of most common injuries on the job. Falls are often caused by wet floors, debris, loose carpets, or throw rugs, cords, poor lighting, or glares from too much lighting. Assess your environment for these hazards and correct them when possible. If you can't fix it yourself, notify your supervisor. To avoid a fall, watch where you are going. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't rush. Keep your center of balance under you. Take shorter, slower steps, and wear sensible shoes that have good traction and support. If you take these few precautions, you can reduce your risk of slips, trips, and falls. Back injuries are an all too common occurrence among healthcare workers, and the risk of injury is even greater for you in long-term care because of all of the patient lifting you need to do. You are at greater risk for back injury than are construction workers and miners. The best ways for you to avoid a back injury are to use proper techniques for lifting and transferring patients, maintain good posture, and stay physically fit. Learn to use your body safely. Always use proper body mechanics when lifting to prevent injury. During a lift, bend at the hips and knees. Lift with your leg muscles, not your back or arm muscles. Avoid any twisting motion. Never lift a load higher than your waist. And keep the load close to your body. Always ask for help if something seems too much for you to handle safely. Use protective lifting devices to help with transfers that are difficult. Each year, healthcare workers and patients suffer pain, injuries, and death from shocks or fires caused by electricity. But electricity can be managed safely if you take sensible precautions and report shocks immediately, including small tingles. Touching an electrical conductor such as metal or moisture increases your risk of shock. Never work around electricity when you, your surroundings, tools, or clothes are wet. Examine all cords and plugs routinely and replace any that are damaged or that heat up when used. Keep cords away from heat and water. Don't run cords under rugs or through doorways or perforate them with tacks or pins. Always use grounded or 3-hole electrical outlets or adapt ungrounded outlets using a standard plug adapter. Never break off or bend the third prong on a grounded plug. And don't use damaged outlets or adapters that let you plug extra cords into one outlet. Don't use any electrical device that blows a fuse, trips a circuit breaker, shocks, or appears damaged until it is inspected and repaired. In patient care areas, use only Underwriter Laboratories hospital-grade electrical devices. Disconnect electrical equipment from the power source before cleaning. Know what to do in an electrical emergency. If a cord or piece of equipment shocks or heats up, disconnect the cord from the power source. But protect your hand and don't touch the plug or outlet. Don't touch the cord if the floor is wet or the outlet is sparking or burning. Call for help to turn off the power at the service panel. If you see someone receiving continuous shock, don't touch the victim or the source of the shock. Disconnect the equipment by pulling the cord out, turning off the wall switch,
or calling to have the power shut off at the service panel. If you can't shut the power off immediately, knock the victim free with a broom handle or other dry, non-conductive object, then call for medical assistance. If an electrical fire breaks out, follow your agency's fire emergency plan.
Fire is another hazard that can and does happen. No one likes to think about it, but everyone needs to know how to deal with it. Here are a few basic rules to follow in case of fire. Know where exits and emergency routes are. Identify locations of fire alarms and fire extinguishers, and know how to use them.
When fire occurs, act quickly. It is a race for safety. R. Rescue patients from the area. A. Activate the alarm or call out the fire code. C. Confine the blaze by closing windows and doors in the area and turning off or removing oxygen equipment from the area. E. Extinguish, if small, by suffocating with a pillow, sheet, or towel. Otherwise, evacuate. Remember that heat and smoke are as deadly as flames. Don't touch walls, doors, or knobs without first testing for heat radiating from them using the back of your hand. Stay close to the floor and avoid inhaling too much smoke and exposing yourself to deadly heat.
Always protect yourself from the hazard of infection. Often this hazard cannot be seen, heard, smelled, or felt, but you can develop a sense for avoiding this hazard by following some practical rules.
Maintain a clean work area. Disinfect surfaces and equipment as needed. Learn what needs to be disinfected and sterilized, and learn the appropriate methods for each. Many infections can be present in a person's blood before any signs or symptoms appear. For example, blood and body fluids can carry the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, as well as the hepatitis B virus, HBV, and the hepatitis C virus, HCV, all of which can be deadly. Therefore, it is important that all medical waste related to patient care be treated as hazardous. This includes items as sharps, blood, body fluids, specimens, soiled laundry, and dirty dressings. OSHA has developed standards known as bloodborne pathogen standards to guide healthcare workers in handling blood, body fluids, and any medical waste in a consistently safe manner by following standard precautions. Your employer has developed an exposure control plan to help implement the requirements of these standards. Make sure you're familiar with both documents. Your life may depend on that knowledge. There are a number of different approaches you can take to reduce your risk of exposure to disease. These include safe work practices, good housekeeping, and proper personal protective equipment. Handle sharps wisely. Needle sticks, one of the most common ways of transmitting disease on the job, can be avoided. Do not bend, recap, shear, or break used needles or other sharps. Immediately after using sharps, place them in an appropriate puncture-resistant, leak-proof, color-coded container. When performing procedures involving blood or other potentially infectious materials, you must minimize splashing, spraying, and spattering. All blood, body fluids, and specimens should be handled with caution. Body fluids which may contain blood include semen, vaginal secretions, cerebral spinal fluid, synovial fluid, pleural fluid, peritoneal fluid, pericardial fluid, amniotic fluid, and saliva. Always dispose of medical waste properly according to your agency's policy. Disposal containers should be appropriately labeled puncture-resistant and leak-proof containers. Be on the lookout for fluorescent orange-red labels and red bags and containers. These warn you that the contents are biohazardous materials. While at work, remember these rules for your safety. Don't eat, drink, smoke, apply cosmetics, or handle contact lenses where there is a potential for exposure to infection. Don't keep food or drink in refrigerators, freezers, cabinets, or on shelves, countertops, or bench tops where blood, or other potentially hazardous materials are present.
Good housekeeping protects every healthcare worker, and it's every worker's responsibility. For example, a contaminated sharp carelessly discarded on a food tray or patient's bedding can jab the person handling the tray, making the bed, or laundering the sheets.
Your facility's exposure control plan lists specific methods and regular schedules for cleaning environmental surfaces that may be contaminated with potentially infectious substances. Here are some general rules. Protective coverings on equipment or surfaces must be replaced when contaminated or at the end of the work shift if contaminated during the shift. Use a broom or dustpan to handle broken glass, not your hands. Handle contaminated laundry as little as possible and with minimal agitation. And use leak-proof bags to transport contaminated laundry.
Personal protective equipment, PPE, provides a vital barrier between your body and danger. Appropriate PPE may include gloves, gown, apron, goggles, face shield, mouthpiece, resuscitation bags, or other ventilation devices.
Gloves should be properly fitted. Single-use latex gloves should be disposed of after each use. Heavy-duty utility gloves should be worn for housekeeping duties and if you come in direct contact with medical waste. And remember to cover any cuts or abrasions with bandages before being gloved. Replace PPE as soon as practical when contaminated or immediately if torn or punctured and no longer able to offer barrier protection.
Medical waste isn't the only dangerous substance you encounter. Hazardous materials may also be in the form of chemicals, such as cleaning solvents, anesthetics, and other substances.
OSHA requires your employer to provide a hazard communication or HAZCOM program to make you aware of any chemical hazards that exist in your work area. The HAZCOM program uses material safety data sheets to teach and update you about specific hazardous materials, including what you should do if labels are incomplete or missing, which substances can be mixed, how, where, and when to dispose of substances, and what first aid measures are needed in case of an accidental spill. Know where this reference material is kept in your agency and ask questions if something is unclear. When dealing with any potentially hazardous materials, always thoroughly wash your hands before and after any work. Correct glove removal as well as hand washing procedures are vital to worker safety. They may seem like trivial subjects, but they play an important role in most of the situations we've covered. After each activity, you should remove your gloves and thoroughly wash your hands before putting on a new pair. Be careful when removing your gloves. While both hands are gloved, peel one glove off from the outside top and hold it in the gloved hand. With the exposed hand, peel the second glove down from the top, tucking the first glove inside the second. Don't touch the outside of the glove. Dispose of the entire bundle promptly in a color-coded, lined waste container. No barrier is 100% effective, so washing your hands after glove removal is critical. If infectious material gets on your hands, the sooner you wash it off, the less your chance of becoming infected. Hand washing also keeps you from transferring contamination to other areas of your body, other people, or the environment. So wash your hands with an appropriate disinfectant and running water as soon as possible after removing your gloves. If the skin on your hands or other body parts come in direct contact with blood or other body fluids, wash the contaminated area with non-abrasive soap immediately. If mucous membranes are exposed, flush with water for about 15 minutes, then seek medical attention. If you are in a location without hand-washing facilities, such as in a patient transport vehicle, use an appropriate antiseptic hand cleanser or antiseptic towelettes. However, treat these as temporary measures only. As soon as possible, you still must wash your hands with soap and running water.
As you have seen, you are exposed to many hazards at work every day. You may have thought of other situations that put you at risk that weren't mentioned here. That's good. You're thinking, you're becoming aware. Your health and safety is really up to you. Ask questions to be sure. Be aware, be healthy, and be safe.
Fire is a real threat in healthcare facilities. According to the National Fire Protection Agency, about 7,000 fires are reported every year.
Many patients, due to illness and special needs, are vulnerable in emergencies, thus increasing the risk of fire casualties.
Fire can happen anywhere. It just needs the right ingredients. To create fire, you need 4 ingredients: fuel, oxygen, heat, and the resulting chemical reaction when all 4 come together under the right conditions. Fuel is any combustible material. It can be solid, liquid, or gas. Solid and liquid fuels must first convert to vapor to burn. Oxygen is also needed. However, to survive, fire only needs 16% of the atmosphere to be oxygen. We humans need an oxygen level of 21%. Heat provides the energy needed to change combustible materials to vapor so they can burn. When fuel, oxygen, and heat come together under the right conditions, a chemical reaction occurs that results in fire.
Your mission is to prevent the threat of fire.
Your task is to be aware of and correct any fire hazards in your work area. Through training and practice drills, you will respond to fire threats quickly and effectively, thus reducing the number of casualties.
To help you accomplish your mission, we will describe fire hazards in your work area, discuss ways to prevent fire, and show you what to do in case of fire.
There are 4 classes of fire. Class A fires include ordinary combustibles,
like wood, paper, cloth, rubber, or certain plastics. Class B fires involve the burning of gases and liquids. Class C fires involve burning of electrical equipment, such as appliances, air conditioning and heating units, motors, and generators. Class D fires involve the burning of certain metals. In healthcare, you are at most risk for Class A, B, and C fires.
You can identify and correct hazards related with these fires by following some simple rules.
You can prevent most Class A fires through simple housekeeping. Make sure storage and maintenance areas are free of trash. Keep oily rags and similar debris in metal containers away from heat. Careless handling of smoking materials is the most common cause of fatal fires in healthcare facilities, even though most facilities prohibit smoking. Your objective is to make sure smoking occurs only in designated areas by all staff, visitors, and patients. Never tolerate smoking in an area where oxygen is used or stored.
Smoking materials should only be discarded in large, deep, non-tip ashtrays, which are emptied frequently in specified metal containers.
Store combustible liquids and gases in designated areas away from heat sources and away from patients. Don't store cleaning fluids in an electrical closet or near any other heat source. Do not allow any spark-producing objects near oxygen in patient areas. Electrical fires are the most common fires in healthcare, so their prevention is your objective. Make sure that only UL-rated electrical equipment is used, and that all electrical equipment and motors are kept clean and maintained properly. Report old or worn wiring and broken or damaged fittings on equipment to the appropriate person. Never overburden electrical outlets or piggyback electrical cords.
Extension cords should not exceed 6 feet and should not run under carpeting or be tacked to the wall.
Immediately investigate any strange or unusual smell coming from a piece of equipment, since an odor is often the first warning of fire. Stop using that piece of equipment until checked out. Many fires have occurred due to faulty electrical equipment brought in by patients or family. If your facility allows equipment to be brought in, have it checked for safety by the appropriate person. Safety and prevention is your goal.
With any danger of fire, start the drill. Fire is fast. It spreads quickly. A small spark can fill a room with smoke or start a blaze in seconds to minutes.
When fire breaks out, the air itself may soon be hot enough to ignite every combustible object in the room, a phenomenon known as flashover.
So you need to act quickly. First 1 to 3 minutes are critical. Your objective is to race to safety.
R, rescue. A, sound the alarm. C, confine the blaze. E, extinguish or evacuate. Since fire is fast, it takes time to investigate any suspicious smell or smoke at once. If you think you smell smoke behind a door, feel the door with the back of your hand first. If too hot to touch, don't open it. If touchable, open the door slowly. When you find a fire, your first task is to rescue. Rescuing patients in immediate danger is your first priority. Stay calm to reassure patients. Remember to stay low during the rescue. Smoke rises to the ceiling, forming a heavy, dense cloud that slowly descends. Smoke is deadly. It contains toxic gases that can kill within minutes. In fact, 75% of all fire deaths are caused by smoke-related carbon monoxide poisoning. Heat also rises. In a fire, it is possible for temperatures to vary from 90 degrees Fahrenheit near the floor to a lethal 600 degrees at eye level. Soaring temperatures can sear lungs and fuse clothing to skin. So your objective is to crawl beneath the smoke and heat. Don't ever hesitate. Sound the alarm with any suspicion. If possible, call out your facility's code for fire so colleagues can sound the alarm while you rescue the patient. Never yell,
"Fire! Don't say that so loud."
Your goal is to avoid confusion and panic. Teamwork is helpful. One person can pull the alarm while another calls the switchboard with the precise location of the fire. Never hang up without asking the party at the other end to repeat the location and any other pertinent data. Confine the blaze, the next task in this race. Healthcare units are separated by heavy fire doors that close automatically when the alarm is sounded to keep the fire from spreading. Your goal is to keep these doorways clear, always. Never prop them open. Doors and windows are barriers to smoke, heat, and flames. Close them along with all vertical openings like laundry chutes. Stuffing wet towels under doors can help keep smoke out. Shut off oxygen supplies if directed to do so. Extinguish, if possible, the next task in this race to safety. If a fire is small and confined to the area of origin, extinguish it. If fire is in a trash can or ashtray, smother it with a pillow, towel, rug, or blanket. If a patient's clothes are on fire, wrap him tightly in a large blanket to extinguish the flames. If a piece of equipment catches fire, pull the plug if possible, or have the electricity turned off at the source panel.
Fire extinguishers are an important first aid measure for putting out fires. While they are no substitute for the automated sprinkler system or calling the fire department,
They can save lives and property by putting out small fires before they get out of hand.
Fire extinguishers work by removing one or more of the 4 essential elements of fire. In healthcare facilities, they are aimed at putting out Class A, B, and C fires. Your objective: make sure you know where the fire extinguishers are kept and can find them in the dark. Electricity may be turned off during a fire. Make sure you know which fire extinguisher to use on each fire.
Extinguishers are labeled A,
B,
Or C.
and may have a pictograph depicting the type of material it is designed to put out.
Class A extinguishers put out fires on ordinary combustibles and are labeled with an A and/or a pictograph. Class B extinguishers smother fires involving flammable liquids or gases and are labeled with a B and/or a pictograph. Class C extinguishers put out fires in or near electrical equipment and are labeled with a C and/or a pictograph. Classes A, B, C extinguishers can be used to fight all 3 types of fires and are marked with the letters A, B, and C and/or with a pictograph. Since multi-purpose dry chemical extinguishers leave a residue that can be harmful to computers and sensitive equipment, you should try to use an extinguisher that leaves very little residue, like a carbon dioxide one. Once you know the ABCs of fire extinguishers, your task is to pass the drill on using one. You simply pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Pull the pin between the 2 handles. Aim the nozzle at the base of the fire, since the pressure of spraying directly into the flames may spread the burning material. Squeeze the handles together. Sweep from side to side. Evenly coat the entire area of the fire. Keep applying the fire extinguishing agent even after the flames are put out. Stay near the extinguished fire, if possible, until the fire department arrives. Evacuate when necessary. If a fire can't be extinguished and smoke, fumes, or flames threaten patient safety, you may have to evacuate. Relocate patients only when directed, and then move them to the designated refuge area. Remember to assist visitors as well. Know the emergency action plan of your facility. The plan includes detailed written instructions on how to evacuate your work area and designate specific individuals to be in charge of different aspects of the evacuation. Become familiar with the evacuation route of your work area. Since evacuation routes include hallways and stairs, keep them clear. Never use them for storage.
Evacuating ambulatory patients first reduces confusion and gives you more room to evacuate non-ambulatory patients. Stay calm and give clear and exact directions.
Terry, get on your knees below the smoke. Crawl quickly. Follow me.
Move patients horizontally. Get patients out of their rooms through the next set of fire doors into a safe area on the same floor. If you can't move horizontally because your way is blocked by smoke or flames, proceed vertically. Work your way down to a lower level. Don't move patients to a higher floor unless absolutely necessary. Never use an elevator to escape. A sudden loss of electricity could leave you trapped inside. Evacuating non-ambulatory patients may present more of a challenge. Only do so when directed, since you may have to disconnect traction or maintain portable life support. To move non-ambulatory patients, use wheelchairs or stretchers if available. You can push the patient to safety while in bed if necessary, but remember, beds can cause a dangerous traffic jam in the hallway.
Here are some transfer techniques that might help you to accomplish your task of evacuation.
The swing carry lets you carry a patient to safety with an assistant by forming a cradle with your arms behind the patient's arms and knees. The blanket drag lets you move a patient to safety by yourself quickly and effectively, even if you have to go down some stairs. The two-man single-file carry lets you move a patient with a cast on the lower part of the body as long as the patient can be put in a sitting position. This technique works well in constricted spaces where single-file movement is necessary. Your evacuation objective may be challenged by some patients. Children, psychiatric patients, and very elderly patients may exhibit irrational behavior. They may ignore the fire, become transfixed by it, resist rescue efforts, or even hide. Give directions firmly and calmly to these patients and escort them to a safe area one-on-one. Blind patients should be told to keep close physical contact with a leader. Deaf patients should be directed by gestures and also escorted to a safe area. During an evacuation mission, make sure you group and account for all patients and visitors. Never leave a group of patients unattended. Remember to bring patient records. Have a system for tagging the rooms already evacuated to avoid unnecessary backtracking. Direct firefighters to the fire and to any patients remaining in the unit.
Now let's take a look at some scenarios showing potential fire hazards. As you watch, your task is to recognize the fire hazard and identify steps to correct it.
Hey, Karen, can you give me a hand with the patient in room 316?
Well, I was going... Okay. Remember, fire doors let people out and keep fires from spreading. Never prop them open. Also, keep stairs and hallways clear of clutter. Evacuation routes need to be wide open.
Hey, Karen, can you give me a hand with the patient in room 316?
Sure, I was gonna... Oh, okay.
This place is a mess. Hello? Okay, I'll be right there.
Never store trash or anything else combustible next to a heat source as found in this electrical closet.
Man, this place is a mess. Hello? Okay, yeah, I'll be right there. Hey, John, I gotta run. Load these bags up on a cart and take them out right now, okay? Great, thanks a lot.
I just left the OR not more than 10 minutes ago.
Remember, all you need is fuel, oxygen, and heat to chemically react and produce fire or deadly smoke. Always be aware of what you are doing. Avoid potential fire hazards.
I just left the OR not more... Ow! 10 minutes ago. Who could be... Better grab this. Be paging me now.
Remember, fires are fast. Always take the time to investigate anything suspicious. Don't hesitate to initiate the alarm. Fires are usually contained when everyone focuses on the mission, preventing the threat of fire. But a bit of carelessness can cause a conflagration and even the loss of lives. Your task is to identify and correct hazards. Know where fire alarms and extinguishers are and how to use them. By accepting this mission, you can win the race to safety.